Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another Eidolon Hunting video. Today's video is going to go over Rhino, his role in the fight, and my Rhino build. Rhino is the other main DPS frame used during the fights other than Chroma, and that's because of Rhino's third ability, Roar, which will multiply his damage. Roar works similarly to Vex Armor, where it adds another multiplier to your damage calculation. However, unlike Vex Armor, Roar multiplies all the damage you deal, and works with the plus damage mods like Serration or Heavy Caliber, meaning that we can use them in our Rhino's weapon, which also allows us to mod for pure radiation damage, unlike Chroma, who's modded for radiation and cold typically. And because radiation damage gives us the biggest damage bonus against the Eidolon's armor, we want as much of it as we can get, and Rhino's Roar helps with that. If you want to figure out how much damage your weapon's doing, I would suggest using a formula like this, where you take the base damage of your weapon, multiply it by its base damage mods, then by its elemental mods, and then finally by the Roar multiplier. You can use this formula to figure out how you want to mod your weapon depending on what ribbon you have. But for me, I find running my Lanka with Serration, Heavy Caliber, Split Chamber, Point Strike, Stormbringer, Hellfire, and then Vital Sense to work perfectly fine for damage, with Vial Acceleration to help with charge time. But like I said, you might want to play around with the formula a little bit to figure out what works best for you. Overall, Roar is much simpler than Vex Armor, and it actually works in a logical way, which should hopefully make it easier to understand how it's affecting your damage. And even though the percentage shown for Roar is going to be much less than the Vex Armor percentage, it's actually not too much worse. Chroma definitely is better for overall total damage, but Rhino's damage is very close to Chroma's. And all that's really going to matter for the Eidolon hunts is whether or not you can one-shot a body part. And for me, I can one-shot it with either Rhino or Chroma, making them both viable. But now that I've talked about Roar, let's look at my Rhino build. The two stats you really care about on Rhino are Duration and Strength. Strength obviously because it's going to increase the damage you gain from your Roar, and then Duration to help you stay in Roar longer, which will help with both your energy economy and allow you to shoot multiple limbs with the same Roar. So for my build, I have pretty good Duration, high Strength with a little bit of efficiency. For me, I don't need to max my Strength out completely, but depending on what your damage is, you might want to max out your Strength. It's going to depend on what kind of weapon you're running and how you have it modded. But for me, I'm running Blind Rage, Transient Fortitude, Intensify, and Power Drift to give me ability strength. And then for my duration, I just have Continuity and Narrow-Minded, which puts my Roar's duration at a little over a minute, which I find is more than enough for the fight. And here I have Streamline to help with my efficiency, especially because Roar is pretty energy intensive, which is the same reason I'm running Prime Flow to give me a bigger energy pool, allowing for more Roar casts overall, without placing a pad down every time. You may notice I'm not focusing on Iron Skin here, and that's because Iron Skin's not going to be particularly useful for the fight. You can cast it every once in a while to help with knockbacks if you're trying to shoot, but as soon as that energy spike comes out, you're going to lose all of your armor, making it not so great for survivability during the Eidolons. It's more of a situational ability for the hunt that will allow you to shoot uninterrupted. And as for Rhino's 1 and his 4, you're not going to use either of them during the hunt, so we don't need a mod for them. You're just going to be buffing damage and shooting stuff, that's it. And then for my aura here, I'm running Corrosive Projection, which if you don't know, helps remove enemy armor, and I have a whole video going over that, which I'll link to above. But you could also swap this out for something like Enemy Radar, or Deadeye if you have the Polarity. And Deadeye is a decent aura for Rhino because it'll work with this Roar, whereas with Chroma it won't work with your Vex armor, making it a less effective aura on Chroma. And then as for my Arcanes here, I'm running 2 Arcane Nullifiers, simply to ignore the magnetic proc that the Eidolon causes and allowing me to retain my energy. But that's really going to cover it for the Rhino build. You basically just want strength and duration. After that, it's up to you. And now that we've talked about Rhino, let's look at the other things I'm running with. For my weapon, I'm running a Lanka, which I already showed off this build. It's a pretty basic radiation build. Hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory. I've just gone for radiation damage with crit and multi-shot. As for the secondary, you can run whatever you want. Here I'm running a Lato Vandal just to take care of the lures quickly, but you can run whatever weapon you prefer. I also like running a Sicarus Prime here if you have it. Overall, your secondary isn't going to be super important. And then as for your melee slot, you can either run a Sarpa or a melee weapon like Atarax or a Scoliax, something like that, just to help you take care of Vombalists. And then of course I'm running an Adarza Kavat with a Cat's Eye buff. If you guys want to know more about my peripheral equipment, I have a whole video going over it called Eidolon Hunter Equipment, which I'll link to above. And then as for the focus school, if you're playing Rhino, just like with Chroma, you're going to want to run a Unairu Wisp as opposed to Void Strike with Matarai, since you're going to be shooting the limbs, and shooting the limbs will use up your Void Strike charges. So you want to be the Unairu Wisp player, and then the other 3 members of your squad are going to be the Matarai players. And if you want to know more about those focus schools, I'll leave a link to a focus school playlist at the top of the video. That's going to cover it for my build. Overall, Rhino is a pretty simple and straightforward frame to play for the Eidolon hunt. And now that we've seen my build, let's look at some gameplay. If you're playing Rhino, you're going to be doing the same thing as when you're playing Chroma. So typically, you'll be the host and be that first person to go out and charge the lure for the tear list. So once you have the lure charged, or at least have a couple Vombulas in it, you can head over to the Eidolon and then start taking down that first shield. Typically, if I'm the DPS player, I'll help out a little bit on the Terror list just because people won't have Void Strike stacks to one-shot the shield initially. So if it's taking a little bit longer, then helping out with the Unairu is definitely not the worst thing. But once you and your squad get into a proper rhythm, you should be putting down Unairu Wisps during the energy spike phase, and then getting in position to shoot when the Eidolon stands up. It should be pretty simple. You're just going to rinse and repeat that over and over again. If you're in a full squad of experienced players, you'll be able to one-shot the shields and then the Sonova, and then just alternate back and forth like that. But how fast it goes is going to be dependent on the rest of your squad. So if you're in a slower group, it might be more beneficial to help shooting every once in a while with your operator, even though you don't have the Void Strike stacks. But again, this is going to be dependent on the group, so just pay attention to the pacing of the fight and use your common sense. Because your main job is always going to be taking out the Eidolon limbs or the Eidolon itself. And you always want to be ready to shoot when the shields go down, because that's basically your only job. And like I mentioned previously, you can use Iron Skin to help avoid knockdowns and things like that, but in terms of overall survivability, Iron Skin is not going to carry you through the Eidolon hunt, like it will in other gameplay scenarios. But that's really going to cover it for the Rhino video. I hope you guys found this helpful in understanding Rhino and his role in the hunt. I do want to make a quick announcement about the Discord server, which is now up and running, all thanks to Karem. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right, but I'm hoping that people will join the server, and it'll be a good place for you guys to find groups and other people to run the hunts with, or other missions if you want to. You know, right now it's mostly focused around doing Eidolon hunts, since that's kind of been my main focus on the channel, but it's certainly not limited to that, and I'm hoping you guys join up and enjoy, hanging out with other people who like playing the same game as you do. That's why I like making the videos, and I'm hoping that this just expands our little community. If you don't know what Discord is, it's basically just a place where people can host free voice and text chat servers that allow people to join communities and hang out and play games together. It's pretty cool, and I'd suggest checking it out if you guys haven't checked it out yet. If you don't know how to sign up, you can basically just go to Google and type in Discord, and the first result should give you a download link. And then once you have it installed, you can just click the main link on my channel, which you can find here, or you can check the description, and I'll have a permanent link in all of my videos from now on. So joining up should be really simple. So definitely do that if you're looking for other people to play with, or just want a place to hang out and talk about Warframe. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. If you found the video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you leave a like, and I hope you all have a good one.